Hey, if you're here again tonight, welcome back. And if you're new, you picked a tender night to walk in on. But honestly, if you clicked on this one, I'm guessing that's not an accident. You're listening to Midnight Clarity, bite-sized therapy for when your brain absolutely refuses to shut up. I'm Amaris, a licensed professional counselor in Texas. And tonight, we're talking about a kind of loneliness people don't usually admit out loud. Not the I'm single and I wish I wasn't kind. Not the I have no friends kind. The kind of loneliness that shows up when you're in a relationship, sharing a bed, a home, a life, and still feeling like you're on your own. The kind where you lay next to someone you love, you can hear them breathing, feel the warmth of their body inches away, and your chest feels like it's drifting somewhere far and quiet and untouched. Where it looks fine on paper, they're not the worst, you're not the worst, but emotionally, it feels like you're in a situationship with your own ceiling fan. So tonight, we're going to talk about why that happens, how attachment styles and love languages twist together to create emotional distance, and why it's so hard to admit you're lonely with someone, and how to know when it's time to take a real, honest look at the relationship you're in. Get comfortable. You don't have to make any decisions tonight. You're just allowed to tell yourself the truth. There's a certain flavor of loneliness that hits different when you're partnered. It's not the loneliness of being alone in your apartment on a Friday night. It's the loneliness of sharing a couch, but not a conversation, sitting across from each other at dinner and feeling like you're interviewing a stranger, realizing you can't remember the last time they really checked in on your inner world, noticing you're always the one reaching, initiating, fixing, asking, are we okay? The ache of I love you, but I feel unseen here. You're here, but I feel like I'm doing this on my own. We're together, but I feel like I lost you somewhere along the way. And then the guilt kicks in because another part of you says, they're not that bad. Other people have it worse. We have good memories. They're a good person. We've been together for so long. I should be grateful. So you swallow the loneliness. You gaslight yourself into calling it a rough patch, stress, a season. But your nervous system doesn't buy it. It keeps tugging on your sleeve like a kid saying, hey, something's missing. Can we please talk about it? That's what we're here for tonight. Not to tell you what to do with your relationship, but to help you understand why it feels the way it does. Let's start with attachment. Not as BuzzFeed quiz, but as a nervous system wiring. Your attachment style is basically the way your body learned to stay connected and safe with other people. So let's break this down, not to diagnose you, but to finally understand why your relationships feel the way they do. I'm going to keep this simple and human. Anxious attachment is when your nervous system says, stay close, don't leave, let me know I still matter. Loneliness for you sounds like, why don't they reach for me? Why am I always the one fixing things? Why do I feel like an option instead of a priority? Your brain reads delayed responses, lack of reassurance, emotional distance as danger. Not because you're clingy, but because your body equates closeness with safety. Anxious attachment often comes from inconsistency. Sometimes your caregivers were loving and present, warm, affectionate, engaged, and other times they were distracted, overwhelmed, shut down, angry, unpredictable. So, as a kid, your nervous system learned love is here until it's not. If I cry louder, cling harder, be good enough, maybe it'll stay. Common ingredients? A parent who was emotionally up and down, depending on stress, moods, substance use, mental health, etc. A caregiver who was physically there, but emotionally preoccupied. Being the sensitive one in a house that didn't have room for sensitivity. care, attention, or praise that you had to earn by performing, fixing, or being perfect. So now, as an adult, your body still scans for tone shifts, distance, changes in texting patterns, little signs they might leave. Not because you're needy, but because unpredictability trained your system to treat closeness like something you have to constantly secure. If anxious attachment is reaching for connection, avoidant attachment is protecting space. So, avoidant attachment is when your nervous system says, I want closeness, but I need room to breathe. Loneliness for you doesn't always register as I'm lonely. It shows up as feeling misunderstood, feeling like you can't be yourself without being too much, feeling like people expect more emotional access than you know how to give. You pull back when things get intense, not because you don't care, but because your system gets overwhelmed. Avoidant attachment often comes from emotional neglect or emotional overload. Your caregivers might have shut down your feelings. Stop crying. It's not a big deal. You're too sensitive. Only tolerated the easy emotions. Been so overwhelmed themselves that there was no room for your inner world. Or leaned on you emotionally in a way that felt like too much. So, your nervous system learned, my emotions aren't welcome here. It's safer not to need anyone. If I handle it myself, I can't be disappointed. Common ingredients? Growing up in a we don't talk about feelings house. Parents who provided for physical needs but never asked, how are you actually doing? Being praised for being low maintenance, chill, independent, or being shamed or mocked when you were vulnerable. As an adult, closeness can feel suffocating, suspicious, kind of like a setup. So you keep people at arm's length, not because you don't care, but because your system equates dependence with danger. Now, let's talk about the one that lives in the middle of chaos. The attachment style that wants closeness and runs from it at the same time. Fearful avoidant attachment, also known as disorganized attachment or anxious avoidant attachment. This is when your nervous system says, I crave intimacy, but I'm terrified you'll hurt me. So you go between, come close, I need you, and get away, you're dangerous. Loneliness here is chaos. You never fully relax into closeness. You never fully detach either. Fearful avoidant attachment often grows out of chaotic or unsafe environments, where your caregiver was both your source of comfort and your source of fear. Think abuse mixed with affection. Parent who was loving one day and terrifying the next. High conflict, issues, or addiction at home. Never knowing which version of someone you'd get when they walked in the door. So, your nervous system learned, I need you to survive, but being close to you doesn't feel safe. Common ingredients for this? Growing up around violence, screaming, threats, or emotional whiplash. Caregivers who scared you, then expected you to cuddle them afterwards. Or being the kid who didn't know if today was a good day or a hide in your room day. As an adult, love feels magnetic and terrifying at the same time. You're always bracing for impact, like you want to cling and run in the same breath. That push-pull isn't you being dramatic. It's your body trying to solve a problem it never should have had to solve. And then there's the one most people don't even realize they have, because it doesn't scream for help. It just feels steady. Lastly, secure attachment is when your nervous system says, I matter, you matter, we can figure this out. You still get lonely. You're not a robot. But you lean into repair instead of panic or shutdown. Secure attachment isn't about having perfect parents. It's about good enough caregivers who are mostly consistent, mostly safe, mostly emotionally available. And when they messed up, they noticed, repaired, apologized, or tried to do better. Your nervous system learned, when I reach, someone usually responds. When there's conflict, we can fix it. I'm allowed to have needs. Common ingredients for this one, being comforted when you were upset, not shamed. Adults owning their mistakes instead of blaming you. Clear boundaries, but not rigid control. and being treated like a kid with feelings, not a problem to manage. As an adult, you're more likely to communicate directly, trust that issues can be worked through, feel worthy of love without having to earn it. And if you didn't grow up with that, it doesn't mean you're doomed. It just means your default settings need a little more conscious updating. Attachment isn't random. It doesn't mean you're broken or just built this way. It's your nervous system's best attempt at surviving the relationships you grew up in. This isn't about blaming your parents or caregivers. It's about understanding the settings your system was programmed with so you stop treating your reactions like personal defects. You don't choose your attachment style as a kid. Your nervous system chooses what kept you safe in that environment. So, before you judge yourself for the way you love or the way you panic, remember, you learned all of this before you had a choice. But now, you're old enough to make new ones. You're noticing, oh, that's why I reach like that. That's why I shut down like that. That's why love feels like this. Good. That's not a flaw, that's insight. Because once you understand how you got wired, you're not just lonely in a relationship, you're informed. And an informed you can start changing patterns instead of just thinking, I'm the problem. And this is where things get tangled. When two different nervous systems start trying to build a relationship using two completely different emotional languages, here's where the loneliness in a relationship really takes off. Most couples are some combo of these. Common pairings, anxious and avoidant, secure and anxious, secure and avoidant, or two people who are secure except when their old wounds get triggered. These patterns usually go like this. One person reaches, talk to me, be with me, come close. The other feels overwhelmed. This is too much, need space. The more one reaches, the more the other one withdraws. The more they withdraw, the more the other one spirals. Everyone feels unseen, everyone feels misunderstood, everyone feels lonely for totally different reasons. Not because there's no love, but because the nervous systems are trying to survive in opposite directions. Loneliness isn't always the absence of care. Sometimes it's the absence of alignment. Here's the part where most people never connect. Attachment is why you reach the way you do, and love languages are how you express it. And when your how doesn't match your partner's how, the relationship starts feeling lonely, even when there's effort on both sides. Think of love languages like translations, not personality traits, dialects. Everyone is saying, I love you. They're just saying it in wildly different accents. Let's walk through each one, but in the real way, the way they show up in adult relationships when you're tired, scared, healing, or triggered. Words of affirmation. If this is your primary language, you need reassurance, clarity, emotional check-ins, acknowledgement, I care about you in actual words. Not because you're insecure, but because your nervous system calms through language. Loneliness for you sounds like silence, unspoken tension, conversations that stop too early. They didn't tell me how they feel, and overthinking the tone of the last text. And here's the kicker. If your partner's attachment style leans avoidant, they may think silence equals peace, while you think silence equals distance. Suddenly, you're both hurting for opposite reasons while staring at the same empty room. Next, we've got acts of service. If this is you, love is an action. You feel most connected when someone helps, shows up, follows through, lightens your load, handles something so you can breathe. Loneliness here isn't emotional neglect. It's practical neglect. You don't need someone to say the right words. You need them to do the right thing. And if your partner's love language is words, they may tell you you're amazing while you're standing there drowning in tasks, thinking, okay, but can you take out the damn trash? Neither one is wrong, just mismatched. Then we've got quality time. If this is your language, nothing hits like full attention, undistracted presence, feeling like a priority, shared moments that feel intentional. Loneliness here hits even when they're physically next to you. Presence without connection feels worse than being alone. If your partner grew up in a distracted house, their brain may not even register that they're half present. You read it as, I don't matter. They read it as, I'm here. What's the problem? Different realities, same room. Next is physical touch. This one gets misunderstood all the time. It's not about sex. It's about nervous system regulation. Touch says, I'm here. You're safe. We're connected. Loneliness for you shows up as no hand on your back, no shoulder bump, no hug when you're stressed, no spontaneous affection. And if your partner has avoidant tendencies, touch may feel intense, intrusive, or vulnerable for them. So you reach for connection and they pull back for safety. Suddenly, the simplest gesture turns into a trigger for both sides. Lastly, we have gifts. This isn't materialistic. This is symbolic love. It's, I saw this and it made me think of you. I remember what you like. You are on my mind even when you're not here. Loneliness for you feels like birthdays overlooked, thoughtful moments missed, partners who say gifts aren't my thing, effort that doesn't feel personal. You don't need big gifts. You need meaningful ones. People with this language often grew up in environments where tangible love, small treats, small gestures, were the moments that felt safe. If your partner didn't grow up with that rhythm, they may think gifts are optional. To you, they're connection. And here's where things really break down. Attachment tells you what you fear losing. Love languages tell you how you try to keep it. If you're anxious and words of affirmation, and your partner is avoidant in acts of service, you reach with words, they reach with action. You feel unheard, they feel unappreciated. If you're avoidant in quality time, and your partner is anxious in touch, you want soft, steady presence, they want closeness and holding. You feel smothered, they feel rejected. If you're fearful avoidant, you want all the love languages and none of them, depending on the hour. If you're secure, you adapt. But even secure partners get exhausted trying to translate someone who doesn't know their own language yet. And here's the truth you're probably already feeling. Loneliness in a relationship isn't usually about lack of love. It's about lack of shared language. One person is saying, I love you, in a dialect the other person never learned. And it's not because either of you are defective. It's because no one teaches us this stuff growing up. We learn it in heartbreak, in misunderstandings, in 1 a.m. arguments, in the quiet ache of feeling unseen next to someone we adore. Once you understand your wiring and your partner's wiring, you're not powerless anymore. You reach differently. You can signal differently. You can soothe differently. You can love differently. And the loneliness you've been carrying, it stops being a verdict. It becomes a starting point. Let's make this real. Loneliness in a relationship doesn't always look like constant fighting or dramatic breakdowns. Sometimes it looks like a slow, quiet drift. See if any of these land. You stop sharing the small things. You used to tell them everything, the random story, the work drama, the intrusive thoughts. Now you think, what's the point? Or you're not listening anyway. You overthink every attempt to connect. You rehearse what you're going to say. You backspace your text. You swallow the, hey, can we talk about something? Because you don't want to feel needy. You fantasize more about feeling understood than about sex. You want to be held emotionally. You want to be known, desired, considered. And the fact that you don't feel that way hurts more than any argument. You feel like the emotional parent of the relationship. You're the one who notices problems. You're the one who brings them up. You're the one who wants to work on things. You're the one dragging the we should talk about this conversation up the hill alone. You're more honest in your head than you are out loud. Internally, you're like, I'm not happy. I feel alone. Something is off. out loud, you're like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just tired. You start projecting into the future and feeling dread. Holidays, kids, aging, stress. You imagine doing all of that with the same level of disconnect, and your stomach drops. You're kinder to them than you are to yourself. You excuse things for them you would never excuse in a friend's relationship. Because if you told the truth about how this feels, you'd have to decide what to do with that truth. If any of that is hitting, I want you to notice you're already aware. Your body already knows that something isn't right. You've just been trying really hard not to make it real. Now, let's talk about why this is such a mindfuck. Because on paper, a lot of these relationships are good enough. They're not abusive, they don't cheat, they show up in certain ways, they have good qualities, you've built a life together. So your brain throws out every guilt trip it can think of. I should be grateful. I'm being dramatic. It's not that bad. Other people have worse relationships. If I leave, what if I regret it? What if nothing better exists? What if it's me? Plus, if you grew up in chaos, this might actually be the most stable relationship you've ever had. So your nervous system is doing this weird dance of, this is safer than what I grew up with, but it still hurts in a way I can't ignore. And that's confusing as hell. So of course you second guess your own loneliness. Of course you downplay it. Of course you try to fix it quietly by doing more, being more, saying less. But denying loneliness doesn't make it go away. It just makes it heavier. I'm not here to tell you whether to stay or go. It's your life, your choice, your timing. What I can do is name some signs that reevaluation is not only allowed, but needed. Not dramatic reactivity, honest inventory. You might need to really look at this relationship if 1, your nervous system calms down more when they're gone than when they're home. You feel relief when they leave, tension when they come back, like you can breathe deeper alone than together. That doesn't mean they're evil. It means your body does not feel consistently safe with them, emotionally, energetically, or relationally. 2, you've been honest about your loneliness and nothing changes. Not one conversation, not a hint, not them guessing the problem. You have actually said the words, I feel disconnected. I feel alone in this. I miss you. I need more from us. And over time, no observable effort. Just dismissals, defensiveness, or that's just how I am. People can't read your mind, but when you give them the manual and they still won't try, that's information. 3, you have to shrink to keep the peace. You with them versus you with people who get you feel like two different humans. With them, you minimize your feelings, avoid bringing up needs, hold back parts of yourself, walk on eggshells around their moods. If you can't be whole in your own relationship, that's not love. That's self-abandonment with shared rent. 4, you've become chronically lonelier with them than you were alone. Not occasional, chronic. You look back at yourself single and realize you had more hope, self-respect, connection with friends, space in your chest. Being partnered doesn't automatically mean you're more emotionally held. And 5, they are comfortable indefinitely with the level of connection that is actively hurting you. You bring it up, you explain it, you ask for change, and they essentially say, in words or behavior, this is good enough for me. You're allowed to say, it's not good enough for me. That's not betrayal. That's alignment. You know I'm not going to leave you without something concrete. This isn't a should I stay or should I leave quiz. It's a way to get honest about what's actually happening so you're not making decisions from fog. Grab a note in your phone or a piece of paper if you can. We're going to do a 3-column check-in. Me, you, us. No one else ever has to see this. Be as raw as you need to be. So, the first step, me. What's true in my body and heart? Under me, answer these. Where do I feel most lonely in this relationship? Be specific. Conversation, intimacy, support, affection, mental load, etc. Whatever it is that is impacting you the most. What do I miss? What do I need more of? Not from the ideal partner, but from this partner. What have I stopped saying out loud? How do I feel about myself in this relationship? Smaller, bigger, steady, insecure, ignored, cherished? No editing, no, but they're nice, no justifying. Just the truth as it lives in your chest. The second one, you. What's actually real about them? So, under you, answer, how do they try to love me, even if it misses? Where do they genuinely show up? Where do they consistently drop the ball? How do they respond when I'm honest about my feeling? Have they ever shown sustained effort to meet me in the middle? This isn't character assassination, it's a balanced picture. We're not looking for all bad or all good. We're looking for patterns. And lastly, us. What is the relationship as it actually functions? Under us, answer, what does it feel like to be inside this relationship most days? If a stranger watched us for a week, what story would they tell about us? How do we handle conflict? Avoid it, blow up, repair? Do I feel like we're on the same team or like I'm dragging the team behind me? If nothing changed in the next 2 to 3 years, would I feel okay staying? You don't have to act on your answers tonight. You just need to tell the truth to yourself. Clarity first, decisions later. Now, if and only if it feels emotionally safe enough, you can use pieces of this to talk to your partner. We're not doing Pinterest therapy language. We're doing honest human sentences your nervous system can say without throwing up. Something like, I want to talk about something that's been hard for me to put into words. I've been feeling lonely in our relationship. Not because I don't care about you and not because I want to fight, because I miss feeling close to you. When blank happens, my brain reads it as distance. I start telling myself the story that blank. What I actually need more of is blank. It would help me feel more connected if we could. You're not blaming, diagnosing, demanding. You're letting them see the emotional impact of the current dynamic, and their response will tell you a lot. Do they get defensive, dismissive, mocking, or shut down? Say all the right words but never change the behavior? Or do they lean in, listen, and start making real, tangible shifts, even imperfectly? You're not looking for perfection, you're looking for willingness. Before we close tonight, I want you to hear this as clearly as possible. Feeling lonely in a relationship does not mean you're ungrateful, you're needy, you're dramatic, you're expecting a fairy tale. It means a real human need for connection isn't being met. Wanting to feel known, to feel valued, to feel chosen, to feel like your partner is with you, not just next to you, is not asking for too much. It's asking for the bare minimum of what a relationship is supposed to be. You're allowed to want more than not toxic. You're allowed to want more than we don't scream at each other. Then it looks fine from the outside. You're allowed to want connection. Real, steady, mutual connection. Whether that's something you can rebuild together or something you eventually need to seek somewhere else. You don't have to answer that tonight. For tonight, let it be enough to admit, I've been lonely here, and that feeling deserves to be taken seriously. Let your shoulders drop just a little. Let yourself unclench around the fear that naming this will blow everything up. Sometimes naming the truth doesn't end things. Sometimes it finally gives them a chance to change. And if it doesn't, that's still information. Information I know you're brave enough to face. You don't have to fix it tonight. You don't have to decide tonight. You just have to stop pretending you're not hurting. Thanks for spending these quiet minutes with me tonight. This is Midnight Clarity, where your mind gets softer, your thoughts get kinder, you get to breathe again. Sleep well. Hey, before you go, just a quick reminder. If you're in Texas and looking for a therapist, you can book with me at embarkedhealingtherapy.com. Midnight Clarity is for reflection and education, not therapy or personalized advice. If you're struggling or need support, please reach out to a licensed mental health professional or local emergency services. I hope you found clarity tonight.